Yeah, mic check one. Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Ask Andrew. We have Ask Morgan because I am filling in for Andrew this week. We'll be tracking in quite a bit of a weather whiplash here as we head through the next several days. In the meantime, though, it has been a really nice lineup. So we're going to go through some of the forecasts because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the weather over the next several days. We're kind of getting a little bit of everything here. Rain chances, continuing some warmth, and then really getting our first real blast of some winter-like air that's going to settle in by the end of the weekend. And then we're, of course, talk about the supermoon that we saw this morning and also kind of dive into maybe some winter weather facts that we are going into because it's November. We're starting to talk about it a little bit more. We're definitely seeing some chances maybe of some snow in the area. We'll talk about it, but let's take a live look outside right now from our Moline camera, because we are seeing lots of sunshine outside. We had a little bit of cloud cover move into the area this morning. It was along a very weak boundary, a very weak cold front, so it brought in that wave of clouds, but now we're starting to see those clearer conditions take over, plenty of sunshine. Gusts are getting up there. 30 miles per hour could get as high as 40 miles per hour as we head through, especially late morning, early afternoon hours before they calm down. But again, looking at satellite and radar, it's been dry this morning. That boundary continues to push off to our south and our east. So again, lots of clear skies that we're seeing out to the west. It's going to be another abundantly sunny afternoon for us as we head through your Wednesday. Now, wind gusts, yeah, they're already starting to get pretty breezy, but you can see the highest gusts are going to be seen here through the next couple of hours. By the time we get to the later afternoon, that's when those winds should begin to calm down a little bit more for us. Going to be a lot quieter as we head into tonight, but I want to point out that the winds are coming in from the northwest. That was, again, thanks to the transition that we saw of that boundary pushing in. And with northwestern flow, it will keep those temperatures from getting too high for today. Yesterday's highs did get to 70 degrees for areas like Muscatine, Burlington, as well as Iowa City, all clocking in 70 degrees as a high yesterday. Here in the Quad Cities and Galesburg, got close enough at 69 degrees, but today not going to be as warm. We're still mild though, 60 for afternoon highs. And again, it'll be nice with the sunshine. As we get into tonight though, clear skies and those northwest winds, again, kind of following suit that we're going to see those temperatures get even cooler as we head into the evening. Now, looking at your Thursday, we are going to see a quick transition back to some southeast winds. What that's going to do is keep us mild in the low 60s, but we're not going to see as much sunshine tomorrow because we're going to flow in a little more moisture. We have a system that's going to push in by late Thursday night, and that could introduce some rain chances as we head into your early Friday morning. So looking at the extended future track, right now, it looks like most of the rain chances are going to hold off until pretty late Thursday, between 11 p.m. and midnight. And right now, that boundary really taps into that moisture, mainly along the Mississippi River and on the Illinois side. So that right now is the best chance for where we can expect rain to fall. I also do want to point out that we do see some pockets of yellow and oranges on the future track. There is definitely a potential that we could get enough energy to squeeze out a couple rumbles of thunder during the overnight hours. But the good news is it should move off to the east quite quickly. By the time we get to your Friday morning commute, we'll start to see those clearer conditions take over. We're in store for another day of abundant sunshine to finish the week, and it's going to stay very mild for us as temperatures will stay in the 60s. So rest of the work week, I want you to take advantage of those nicer temperatures because this weekend is when we're going to start to see some major changes. So as we look at Monday morning, we have a weather impact alert in place. We have issued this just to keep in mind to keep you kind of, let me say, I'm trying to think of the word that I'm trying to think of. I don't know. Just to keep it on the forefront of your mind as we head into the next couple of days. The reason why we have a weather impact alert in place for just Monday morning is because we are expected to see the coldest air of the season on that day, but also the coldest time of the day is going to be just before sunrise, which is when a lot of us are heading out to work or sending the kids off to school. So make sure that you're bundling up those kiddos, setting them off with those hats and gloves because it's kind of going to be a winter appetizer here for us with those temperatures. So again, as we take a look at temperatures for the rest of the week, staying in the 60s, you can see 65 for Friday, but then by Saturday, we're going to start to see that transition. We're dropping down to the 50s. It's likely going to be a pretty gloomy day for us on Saturday because not only are we tracking in this Arctic blast of air, it's going to be associated with a system that will drag in that cold air from the north. So by the time we get to Sunday, we crash temperatures. Highs are only going to be in the 30s through Sunday and Monday for us. So again, Monday morning looks to be the coldest of this timeline as we're expected to see those wind chill values in the teens for that morning, and it's likely going to be pretty blustery through Sunday and Monday as well, so feels like temperatures are likely going to feel well below freezing for the entirety of both of those days. So again, hopefully you got your winter gear out because I know we haven't needed it much recently, but definitely showing that the signs of the season are here. So looking at the next 8 days, you can see that dip in those temperatures. We stay nice, that rain chance pushes in on Saturday, and then we get into Sunday and Monday where highs are going to be a lot chillier for us, but good news, rebound quite quickly back to the 50s by the time we get to the middle of next week, getting a little more seasonable for us. I do want to point this out, and now take this with a grain of salt. As we look at the system on Saturday, something we are going to pay attention to, and this is a comparison of two models. Don't freak out. I know there's a lot of snow on one of them, but there is definitely a possibility that we could see some snowflakes in the mix for Saturday's system. It's really going to depend on the timing. And right now, this is a look at Saturday evening. I think that scenario one where it does really mix in that light snow potential, I think that's really kind of overkill on this model, but I think it's picking up that colder air faster. I think that the likelier scenario is going to be with that number two, where most of the snow chances in that wintry mix is going to stay more so to the north. Not going to rule out the possibility, though, of a few flurries to be mixed in. It just really is going to depend on how long this system lingers around into Saturday evening and going into Sunday morning when we do have some of that cooler air. So we'll keep a close eye out on it. It's just kind of a heads up that, again, we're seeing some major changes here, but I'm not expecting any impacts to roads. Even if we do see any of those snow showers mix in, You got to keep in mind that our ground is still well above freezing. We haven't seen any frozen ground kind of take place. So if anything does fall, it's likely going to melt upon impact. But luckily, we're going to get the system out of the way before we do bring in those cooler temperatures. But looking at the 14-day tracker, you can see we're just going to hit this cold spell for just a couple days before we do see a rebound to temperatures back in the 50s, and even could see a couple more 60s too as we look at that 14-day tracker and looking beyond the middle of next week. So still remaining quite mild for us for the month of November. Now, earlier this week on Monday, Andrew's Ask Andrew question was, let's get it to load here. Which supermoon will be the biggest and brightest this year? Dave in Clinton, Iowa asked that. Now, we've had quite a few supermoons. In fact, we had a supermoon last month, and that was the harvest moon in October. This supermoon that occurred this morning, it hit its peak at around 7:16 a.m. Is actually the biggest and brightest that we see of the year. It is called the Beaver Moon. Again, that took place this morning. But also some things that you can look forward to for some nighttime viewing in November is we have a couple meteor showers that we're going to see. Now, probably going to butcher the names, but the Taurids meteor shower is going to take place November 11th through the 12th. And then November 16th through the 17th, we'll have the Leonid meteor shower. So some exciting things if you're an astronomy nerd as we get into the next couple of weeks of November. Now, it is definitely starting to see some changes with the signs of the times. But here's a look at how 2025 has panned out so far. We're going to look at some departures from normal of the year so far. And our year has been generally pretty warm. I know that we have seen a continuation of late summer from September into October. October ended 4.3 degrees above normal. No surprise there. Took some time to really start to feel the effects of fall get in. The warmest above normal month was in March, clocking in at 5.5 degrees above normal. But again, at times we've been a little cooler, but not anything more significant than the warmth that we have seen. This is usually typical as we get into our years. We usually trend a little bit warmer. That's just been the sign of the times here, especially over the past decade. But looking at the precipitation departure, you can see most of our months have been below normal. But we saw a really saturated July. We ended 5 inches of total rainfall above normal. So we had a total of 9 inches of precipitation for the month of July. What that did for us heading into the fall season is it kind of kept us from seeing those drought conditions develop sooner like we usually get during the August-September timeline. We really haven't seen those drought conditions take over until just recently within the past month. But that also did delay our fall coloring. Because we saw the very saturated July, it kept those leaves a little happier for longer, and we didn't see those drought impacts kind of take over. So we did see a really big delay when it came to our official peak coloring of those fall leaves. And so that's why we're also seeing a lot of leaves stay on the trees right now, and also still seeing a lot of those nice fall colors lingering around the area. But now we are starting to get into November. We're talking about really windy conditions, so we're likely going to have to be cleaning up the yards here very soon. That's why if you have any yard cleanup to do it this week before we get into Saturday, because that's when we're going to start to see the transition. But luckily next week, you'll have some more opportunity to get out there and at least remain pretty comfortable. Now, of course, we are in November, so I want to get you a look at kind of our averages for the month of November, because not only are we talking about cooler temperatures, we're talking about on average seeing our first round of snow. So November normals, we start the month at 57 degrees for an average high. Again, we've been above normal for the past couple of days, and we're still expected to stay near normal, especially as we get after this cold snap that's heading our way. But by the end of the month, our average high drops down to the low 40s, and you can see overnight lows too. Going to get quite frigid by the end of the month. We don't usually see a lot of rain, at least on average, for the month of November. Again, we start to see our drought conditions more so during the timeline of September, October, November. And then we also lose an hour of daylight. Of course, we have seen that change with the time change recently, but not only that, we do lose an hour of daylight through the month of November. On average, though, we do see 2 inches of snowfall. And usually, though, During November, our snow chances are usually in very quick stints. Not really expected to see much of accumulation with those events. It's just kind of something that tacks on over time during the month. And maybe we do see a trace by this weekend. That's something that we're going to be watching closely. But when it comes to our first official inch of snow, usually, we get that in the beginning of December. But this is a look at the past several years when it came to the first inch of snow in 2019. October 30th. I'm sure a lot of us remember the snowy Halloween that we saw. In 2020, we saw our first official inch recorded at December 12th. 2021, pretty late at the end of December. December 28th was that first official inch. And then 2022 and 2023, both kind of more normal when it comes to that first inch reading, both happening in the middle and end to November. But if you remember last season, we didn't see our first official inch until we got past the new year. So that first official inch of snow recorded, and again, I'm talking about in one go, in one round, didn't happen until January 2nd of 2025. So that was for the 2024-2025 year. Again, this past season, we had some of the lowest snow amounts that we have seen in quite some time when it came to our average timeline of seeing some snow and also how much we get. So hopefully we can kind of repeat that. I didn't mind not having as much snow, but this is a look at the season's snowfall over the past 10 years. Average snowfall in a season is 36.1 inches. And that's talking about November when we start to see some snow, all the way through April, where we still on average see about 1 inch of snow during that month. But for us meteorologists, when we're defining our winter season or our winter months, that starts December 1st, and that carries us to the end of February. On average, between December 1st to the end of February, we usually see around 28.2 inches. And again, last year, during that timeline, I think we only saw about 6 or 7 inches total. So it was definitely a below normal season for us. But you can see in years past, we've been very back and forth between seeing low snow or seeing seasonable snow. 2013 to 2014, we had 65 inches of snow total. 2018 to 2019, 60 inches of snow. And then of the recent years, I believe it was the 2022-23 season that we got that really, or it was 23 to 24 that we got that really snowy week where we saw like what, 15 inches in one day, nearly 20 inches in 1 week. So it definitely goes back and forth when it comes to our winters. And also keep in mind that we have been in a La Nina pattern for quite a few of our recent winters too, but we haven't seen usually as much snow as we get with La Ninas. Technically, we usually get a little more snow when we're in a La Nina pattern. We could be talking about that again this year, but it does look like it's going to be a really weak La Nina. And in fact, we're expected to trend neutral by the time we get to, I believe, the beginning of the new year. I was looking at the forecast earlier today. So we're going to start to take a look at some of those questions. But I also do want to point out, I know I've been talking a lot about snow. In fact, today, your favorite Storm Track 8 meteorologist team is going to be working on recording our roundtable for our winter weather special, which we're hoping will be available for you to watch on our WQAD 8 Plus app early next week. Of course, once we know for sure when it's going to be available, we'll tell you everywhere. Facebook, on air, we'll be able to let you know. So it's going to be a very similar kind of situation to our last year's winter weather special, but all new topics that we are coming up with. And of course, we're going to have a look at our snowfall predictions. So I'm not going to give mine away just yet. You're going to have to wait until we get to that special for you to see what we're thinking for the upcoming season. All right, so we got a couple of questions here. Billy from Clinton says, good morning, my friends. Is it possible for a warm core system to become a cold core system? If yes, is that what happened with Hurricane Sandy as it became a superstorm? Thank you for your time, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. So when it comes to hurricanes and them strengthening, you want it to be warm. As hurricanes go over water, that's the fuel that they use for them to strengthen. When we're talking about a cold core system, usually when that cold core takes over, it generally starts to weaken those systems. So I believe that is, it is possible for a warm core system to become cold core, but usually it will start to die out once it starts to see that colder air, especially with hurricanes. Even though they are super complex, we have a lot of different moving parts in hurricanes, but warm water is what intensifies it even more. When it comes to rain chances, when it comes to wind speeds with hurricanes, it's that warm water that really can fuel things. And then also the speed of the system can also be a big, what is the word I'm thinking of? I don't know. It could be a big influence. That's the word I'm thinking of. Big influence on how much rain that produces from a hurricane. Because if you think about Katrina, what happened with Katrina is it actually stalled pretty close to the shoreline there, and it just dumped rain right over the New Orleans area. So it's very complex situations when it comes to our hurricanes. So we have Bill saying hi. Hello, Bill. Doug in Bettendorf asks, are we expecting any severe storms this winter? If we're talking about severe in terms of like thunderstorms, usually, I mean, it's not out of the question that you can't get thunderstorms during the winter season. But generally, we just don't see as much. Now, like what's happening tomorrow night, where we could get a couple rumbles of thunder, that's basically what we see. And we do kind of see an uptick during the month of November when it comes to our chances of seeing any thunderstorm activity. And I know that we have seen our quick stints of seeing some severe storms, especially late season. We did see a derecho for the first time in December a couple years ago. And so that's definitely not out of the question. But once we get to January, February, we generally don't see any severe weather because we are really in our midst of our cold air. And again, with thunderstorms, they really like that moist, warm air to come in. Usually with the cold air, we're talking more about those snow chances, which can also be, to me, can be defined as some severe in terms of the impacts that they can produce to the area. Margaret in Davenport asks, it's November and still in the 60s. Is winter going to show up late this year? Maybe. I will say, though, we'll go back to this 8-day tracker in case you missed it, because we are getting our first real taste of winter-like air. So yeah, we've been in the 60s. There is no doubt about it that we have been warm over the past couple of months. It's been delayed to really start to see those temperatures get a little cooler, but we get this first real winter-like appetizer for Sunday and Monday of the upcoming week. Highs are going to be in the 30s. We're talking about coat weather, hats, gloves, all needed. And not only that, is we're in our windy season, which is usually the windiest during the month of November into December for those winds to kick up. So when you're factoring in those gusty winds, it's going to feel even colder as we're talking about wind chill values. So for Sunday and Monday, you can expect it to feel likely below freezing all day for both days, but the coldest of it is going to be on Monday morning, where we're going to have those feels-like temperatures as low as the teens, and that's why we have a weather impact alert in place for Monday morning, just to keep you, or just to give you that moment to keep it in mind over the next couple of days as we do get ready for work and school on Monday, so you can remember you got to bundle up. All right, Sue in Moline asks, did you see the moon overnight? Why was it so big? So yes, the moon, we had a supermoon last night, and a supermoon is defined by it being one of the closest moons to the Earth. And so it appears a little brighter and appears a little bigger. And I will say I did see it. I was out my door at around 4 a.m. this morning, and usually it is extremely dark where I am. I don't have many streetlights near my home. And I didn't even need anything. I could actually see where I was going this morning because that moon was so unbelievably bright this morning. It was really nice to see. It peaked at around 7:16 this morning, that super moon. It was a beaver moon. And if you missed it, you have another opportunity. In about a month, we will have another super moon in the month of December. Tyler asks, without any hurricanes making landfall this year, does that have any effects on what may happen this winter? No, that will not. It's just been a very lucky year for us in the United States when it comes to hurricane season. We still are technically in hurricane season. The season will officially end, I believe, middle of November is kind of the official timeline for them to call for the National Hurricane Center to kind of stop watching those forecasts as much. But that's not to say that we can't see more activity through the month of November, but we're definitely starting to see that season calm down. When it comes to winter here, the bigger impact does come with the El Nino Southern Oscillation, which is the pattern of when we're talking about being in an El Nino or a La Nina. And this year we are expected to be in a very weak La Nina. We were in a weak La Nina last year. We didn't see much snow. We were in a weak La Nina the year that we saw that 25-inch snow in 1 week. So again, even when we're talking about El Nino and La Nina, you really can't even just bank on that telling you what the forecast is going to be like. Winter is going to do what it wants. Winter is it's very hard to predict. We can look at temperature patterns a little bit more in terms of looking out at least maybe a month away. Are we seeing some signals to some colder air? And not only that, with really, really cold air, keep in mind that if we do see a really cold winter ahead, cold air actually takes out more water content of the air and it can't hold on to as much moisture. So when we get really, really cold spells, we generally don't see as much snow in that timeline because we just don't have as much water content to pump out from that cold air. Riley's asking, we got two. Okay, two from Riley. How exciting is the rain chance for tomorrow night? Is Monmouth going to get any, or is the chance not great for rain? So let's take a look at that extended future track that I have that tracks in the system for tomorrow night. I will say though, kind of a little spoiler, it doesn't look that exciting for most of us, and especially I'd say for Monmouth, not really expected to see too much. Right now it looks like the system is going to bring in a couple of chances for some isolated showers by the time we get to late Thursday night. This is a look at 11 o'clock, so yeah, you might get a passing sprinkle. Again, we don't have much moisture in the atmosphere at this time, and it's not going to bring in much in terms of accumulating rainfall. It's just going to be some light rain chances. And as we head closer to midnight, especially on the Illinois side of the Mississippi River, we're talking more closer to Galesburg, Sterling Rock Falls, as well as Princeton, where we may get some of those heavier pockets of rain. If we do see any thunderstorm activity, it's not going to be anything severe, just maybe a couple rumbles of thunder that we could get with tomorrow night's system, but it's not really the most impressive chance of rain. The better chance of rain does come in for the weekend. It's still going to be very, very light, but it does look like the coverage is going to be more widespread, so I'd say you have a better chance of seeing some rain in the area for Monmouth for Saturday. And then Riley also says, to make your laugh, here's a joke of the day. What's a snowman's favorite breakfast? It's Frosted Flakes. I like that. That's a good one. All right. Brandon in Sterling asks, can a warm fall lead to heavier snow later in the season? I think we have done some research on this when it comes to looking at how warm our fall was and how snowy our season is. And there are some factors that can work together for that. I think in the past we have seen snowier winters after a warmer fall, but there's also been many times where we didn't see as much snow after a warmer fall too. So again, it's very give or take. There is a ton of data that we can look at, but with, climate, weather just ever so changing all the time. It's definitely something that we just have to continue to watch those trends for. Again, winter weather forecasting and trying to talk about what you can expect for the upcoming season is so extremely difficult to do. It's kind of a best guess situation because winter is going to do whatever it wants. We could say, hey, it's going to be mild. We're not going to see as much snow, but then we get 1 week in January where it's bitterly cold, or we get 1 week in January like we saw a couple years ago where we see record snowfall and we get 25 inches in 1 week. So very give or take, but we will have, again, I guess this is another reminder if you're just now joining us, as we are going to have another winter weather special. We have been working hard on it over the past couple of weeks. Today we're going to be recording with the weather team about our snowfall predictions, kind of talking, doing a little bit of roundtable about all our topics. Of course, all of our topics are new this year from last year, so you'll be able to tune into that. And of course, we're going to have a good breakdown of what we can expect for the upcoming season too, and all of that good stuff. So that hopefully will be available for you to stream early next week. Once we know, we will be able to tell. We will for sure tell you. You'll probably get tired of hearing us talk about it. Sam in Galesburg asks, can you tell from the clouds when snow is coming instead of rain? That's a very interesting question. No, I don't think you can tell. I think you can tell more so if it's going to be a heavier snow or a heavier rain, but you can't really depict between the two. It's more so those temperature profiles that show that transition. But when it comes to rainfall rate, if you just have that, you can kind of tell some days the clouds appear darker. That's because they're heavier. We got a thicker layer of clouds that's blocking the sun out. So if it's darker, you got heavier clouds. Usually that's a lot more moisture content within the clouds for them to squeeze out some rain. But if it's a very light color, a very light gloomy day and we see some rain chances, usually it's just going to be a little bit of a drizzle. Kayla in Davenport asks, how much snow do we normally get by Thanksgiving? On average, we see about 2 inches of snow in the month of November. So on average, I'd say about 2 inches of snow total, not on the ground, just total by the time we get to the Thanksgiving timeline. So far over the past couple of years, we haven't really seen much snow in the November month, but normally we do see at least total when it comes to amounts of snow that we have seen by the time we get to Thanksgiving is about 2 inches. Dante says, how much snow are we going to get on Sunday? I don't think we're going to get really any snow. So even if it does snow by the time we get, so I'll pull this scenario graphic up again. Even if we do see snow, our ground is still very warm. A lot of the snow is going to melt upon impact. It's probably not going to accumulate. Even if it does fall, it's going to be very light. But I will say scenario 1 of our long-range model is bringing in light rain and snow chances by the time we get to Saturday night, early Sunday morning. The big question is those temperature profiles. However, what I like a little bit more is scenario 2. That's our second long-range model. And that one keeps most of the snow chances off to the north. That's kind of what I'm thinking that's going to happen. I think most of this is going to be falling as rain. If we do see a mix, it is just going to be that. It's just going to be a mix. And again, very, very light. Not anything heavy, not anything impactful. Shouldn't cause any disruptions to roads. And I think by the time we get to Sunday morning, too, we're going to be dry. Just a lot chillier. So I think that is all of the questions that we have for this edition of Ask Andrew, Ask Morgan live for your November 5th. Of course, you can join us each and every Wednesday for an edition of Ask Andrew, whether it's Peter, me, Andrew. We'll always try to get you an update on current weather as well as looking around and getting your questions too for you to join us in. But in the meantime, we'll let you go. Everyone have a fantastic Wednesday.